Hello my friend, how are you doing today? In today's video, I want to take you on an adventure to build this amazing looking multiverse portal box with me. Spatial computing, AR or VR, is the only technology which comes close to teleporting you to other worlds. Portals are like windows and doors to these worlds. My name is Sarang Borude and I'm here to share my journey of building beautiful looking spatial computing apps with you. Just one more thing before we embark on this adventure. If you like my videos, it would mean a world to me if you could like and subscribe to the channel. If you don't want to build this app yourself and just want to try it out, I put a link in the description to my free app, Just a Portal, on the App Store. Just go and try it out. Now, let's get started. So we are going to start with a completely fresh project called Portal Box. You can name it anything you want. I have the initial scene window and my immersive space is mixed with RealityKit as the renderer. Let's create it. Now that our project is open, we are going to import some assets into this project. I have created some skyboxes for this project and some assets. If you're curious, I used a tool called Skybox AI by Blockade Labs, and that allowed me to create these amazing looking skyboxes. So here's an example. Okay, so I have like 4 of these because we're making 4 worlds. Here. So if you want to download these assets, they are in the GitHub project linked in the description, so you can get it from there or you can make your own. So I'm going to take these skyboxes, I'm going to just drop them in the project. Make sure that name of the target is checked so XCode can find it. If this is not checked, you'll get an error. Now let's jump into Reality Composer Pro and make our portal box. So I'm going to go into RealityKit content and I'm going to open it in Reality Composer Pro. So my Reality Composer Pro project is open. What I'm going to do now is simply delete the immersive scene because we don't need it. Now we have to create a new scene, which I'll do by clicking this button over here. It gives us a new untitled scene. I'm going to rename it as Portal Box Scene. So in this scene, we have to create our portal box. A portal box is a bunch of cubes arranged in a form factor of a box, and their front faces of the cube are hollowed out. So that's exactly what we're going to build now. Let's get started. So I'll start with creating a transform. And I'm going to call it box. I'm going to add a cube and you can see the cube over here, and then let's try to find a material for this cube. So I'll just go here in Reality Composer Pro material library section. By the way, the library is right here on the top right corner of Reality Composer Pro, the plus button. And then here you can simply go to, let's say wood, and maple plywood is good. So we'll start with that. I'm going to select my cube, delete the default material. And when I select my cube in material bindings, I can select root maple plywood, and this is the material it's going to apply to this cube. So I don't really like the color of this. I'm going to make it a little bit more, I'm going to make this color a little bit more like brown. Much better. It looks nice. Okay, so we created our cube here. We assigned our material to it. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the cube about 100 centimeters or 1 meter. The reason I'm doing it is because then the calculations become much easier if you're kind of starting with a 1 meter cube. Our portal box is ready here. You might have noticed that I have picked some weird scale values like 0.048 and like 1.05 here. That's basically I wanted to perfectly align the corners so that it feels like it's one box. So that's the reason why I kind of tweaked these values. This basically came through experimentation, so nothing specific about it. So you can play with these values too. What else? Now that our box is done, what are we going to do is we are simply going to add 4 anchor transforms to which our portals anchor to. So let's make them. So here I created 4 anchors. They're just empty transforms, and I aligned them with like the 4 front faces of the cube. I'm also going to make sure that they are a child of the box as well. So this is what it looks like right now. So that's it. We'll save it and we'll jump into Xcode. Alright, so we are in Xcode. We are going to do most of our work in immersive view. What we'll try to do is we'll just try to load our portal box in our reality view. So I'll replace this immersive with portal box scene and try to run it. Okay, so you don't see the portal box when you show immersive scene, but it's already there. It's just underneath, so it's not positioned correctly. So we want to set the position of the box in the scene now. And to do that, we need to find the box in our scene hierarchy. So let's go into Reality Composer Pro, and we can see that our box is constructed under this transform of box. So let's try to find that and then set its position. Right, so box is in front of us. I now want the box to look a little bit taller, so I'm going to change its scale a little bit. So let's try and do that. Okay, so I pushed the box a little bit far out in front of me, and then I changed the scale so that it's twice as high on the y-axis. So let's try and run that. So that's our portal box. Now the only thing is left is we need to put portals in it. So let's do that. So I now want to explain you how portals work. So the way portals work is portal is essentially a window, right? So you are creating a world and you're essentially telling that you can only see this world from this window that I'm defining as the portal. So when you see the world from outside this window, you don't see it, it's invisible. So that's essentially the effect we are going to create. So for this, we want to first create a giant sphere around us and then apply our skybox to it, and then essentially see this skybox through this window. And let's just start with that. Let's just first try and create the skyboxes first, and then we'll try to put them inside a world that we can see from a portal. Alright, so we need to create this function called create skybox entity that loads the skybox texture, applies it to a giant sphere, and then returns it as an entity. So let's do that. So since we are calling an async function when we are loading our texture resource, we need to make our function async. And then I'm going to create a unlit material to which I'm going to apply this texture to. Let's create the entity for the skybox. And then do entity.components .set, and we're going to create a model component and then set its mesh to a giant sphere. So we'll do generate sphere. We'll make it like very huge, like 8,000 meters, and then I'm going to set its material to be our newly created material that has the skybox texture on it. So I did something, I didn't really explain it, but like if your immersive view doesn't have main actor property wrapper, then Xcode keeps complaining that like entity creation is async, so you need to put like async here or await here and then await here. So just make your immersive view main actor. Right, now what we are going to do is like we created a sphere, but the sphere kind of has this material applied on the outside. So what I'm going to do now is essentially invert the sphere to the inside. So I can do it by changing its scale. Alright, that creates our skybox and then it returns it. So here you have to make sure that you're adding a weight here and then you're creating the skybox entity. So our skybox has been created now. Let's just try and add it to our scene. Yay, we have our skybox loaded and you can see that it's right here. But now we can just see the skybox outside the portal and it's everywhere. So how can we do something where our skybox is essentially seen through a window in this box? So let's try to do that. So what we need to do is we need to add our skybox to a world and create a portal through which we can only see this world. So let's just do that. So to create the first world, we are just going to create an entity. We are going to set a world component on this entity. So now what happens is when you create a entity with a world component, any of its child are assigned to that world. Okay, so if we do, so let's just remove this and we can just simply say world1.add child and add the skybox1 entity. The skybox get assigned to our world1 entity and it can only be seen through a portal now. So I'm just going to add the world1 to our content. Alright, you can see that the skybox is not visible anymore. The reason this is happening is because we have assigned our skybox to a world, but we have not created any sort of portal or window through which we can see this world. So let's just go and create that now. So we haven't really created this function, so let's just go and create the create portal function. So what are we doing in the portal function, create portal function? So we are generating a plane which is 1 meters by 1 meters, and then we are creating a model entity with a mesh resource of the portal mesh that we generated, and then we added a material, the portal material here, and we are basically we are setting another component called a portal component, and setting its target to an entity which is going to be our world. How the whole portal dance works is very simple. We first create a world. A world is something that has a world component on it, and then we can add any entities as a child to this world. Okay, so anything you add is part of this world here, right? So you can keep adding more children to it. Okay, then we are creating the portal, and in the portal we are basically passing our world. And what we are doing here is we are telling that you create this material called portal material for the mesh that we are generating, and then we are simply setting a portal component on it, and we are telling in that portal component that I want you to render this particular world, which is the target. Okay, and then I am simply returning the portal here. Okay, so that's also an entity. Let's do content.add.entity.world1portal and try to run it. All right, so where is our portal now? Maybe here. So you can see that our skybox is there, and you can see our skybox through this portal that we just created. Okay, so now we just need to put it in the right place, right? And this is where we are going to use our anchors. We are back in Reality Composer Pro. We are going to see that the name of our anchor is Anchor Portal 1. This is exactly what we are using. We need to remember the name right, so we are going to add it in XCode. Let's do that. So first I'm going to find my anchor portal. So we found our anchor, we added our newly created portal as a child of it. It's not properly rotated yet, so let's just try to rotate the portal so that it kind of perfectly aligns. Rotation, and we'll rotate it in the x-axis by 90 degrees. So we can do that by defining a quaternion. Let's do simply quat f, and they have like this initializer for it, which takes an angle in radians. So we can do dot pi by 2 radians is 90 degrees, and then we have to define an axis. We can simply define as 1 in the x-axis, 0 in the y-axis, and 0 in the z-axis, right? Let's run it. All right, so we have one portal done, and we can see it. It looks amazing, and it's perfectly aligned. So you remember that we created this portal that was like 1 meters by 1 meters, but now for some reason the portal kind of automatically got scaled. So let me explain what's happening here. So you created this portal, you made it the child of this anchor portal, right? And if you look at the hierarchy in Reality Composer Pro here, you can see that it's the child of the box, right? So what you have done here is you have scaled the box here, right? So you've scaled the box to be 2 times in the y-axis, right? So because there is a scale applied to the box, and the portal is essentially the child of the anchor portal, the box scaling also scales the portal. We can also try that when we kind of do this, and if we change the box scale to like 111 and run again, so you can see that the portal is actually properly scaled. I'm going to fast forward making 4 more portals. I also want to mention that the GitHub project is in the description, so check that out if you want to just take a look at the code. All right, so while I was doing this, there's a problem that is coming up with the rotation, and I think that needs a little bit of explanation. So let's just talk about it. Let's just run it and see the problem first. So the problem that's happening right now is that the portal on the front face and the back face, they are being rotated properly, but the portals on that are supposed to go on the left and the right face, they are not angled properly. To solve this problem, we need to understand how RealityKit handles like rotations on multiple axes. So let's try and fix that. So we are doing two rotations, one on the x-axis, one on the y-axis, right? And then we need to apply them to our portal. So what we can do is we can describe two rotations. So we are multiplying these two rotations when we assign them. One thing to note, that order of this multiplication matters. So we are going to take the y rotation first and then multiply it with the x rotation. Okay, we are going to do the same thing for our other portals. Now simply apply the rotations in the right order. So y first, so portal 4 rotation y times portal 4 rotation x. Now let's run it. So our portal box is looking pretty great right now, but it's missing something. Our worlds are kind of just empty skyboxes. There's not much content in it. So now what we should do is we should try to see if we can add more interesting content to this portal. So what I'm going to do now is going to add a different particle system to each world, and we'll try to render it in the separate world so that we can see it through the portal. So let's try to do that. So we are back in Reality Composer Pro. I'm going to create 4 separate scenes here. Each scene will contain a particle system, one for each world. So let's just do that. But before I do that, we'll need to import some assets in here for creating our interesting particle systems. I'm just going to add this cherry blossom and the maple leaf here because that's what we're going to use for our particle system, but that's about it. Okay, I'm going to create my first scene. I'm going to call it world 1 scene. So now that we have our empty scene, which is for our world 1, I'm going to simply add a particle emitter. If you select the particle emitter, you can see there are a bunch of particle emitter properties you can play with. If you hit the play button here, the particle system starts playing. And Reality Composer Pro also gives us some nice presets. So I want a snow preset. So that's kind of nice one to start with. I'm going to set its emitter shape to 10 and 10 on the X and Y axis. So 10 meters by 10 meters. So it kind of spreads out the particles all over the world. And then what I'm going to do is I'll go into the particles tab. You can see that our particles are very sparse right now. So I'm going to increase the particle count here to 5,000 and 1,000. I'm also going to make the particles like double their size, so maybe 0.2 centimeters. So the unit can change over here, by the way, so make sure you change it in centimeters and then kind of set it appropriately. You can see that our snow is also disappearing very quickly, so I'll change the lifespan to maybe 20 seconds, and then our snow will kind of last for a little longer before it dies down. And I think that creates our first particle system. All right, so same thing, I created another scene, same thing here. I create a particle system. I started with the rain preset here, and then what I did was I changed the size to 10 meters in the X and 10 meters in the Y, the same thing as the snow. And what I'm doing, the things I changed here was mainly in the particle side, where I changed the birth rate to 50,000, burst count to 10,000, and then I changed the size to 0.4, and lifespan I changed to 0.3, and that kind of gave me very heavy rain. Alright, so I created another scene, world 3 scene. In this I want to show fall leaves falling. So that's the particle system we created. So I started from the snow preset here, and then what I did was I changed the emitter size to be 10 meters by 10 meters in the X and Z axis. Most of the changes were done in the particle side. So I changed the birth rate to 50, burst count to 5. I changed the particle image to the maple leaf asset that we kind of pulled into the project earlier. And then I changed its size to 20 centimeters. So we have some big looking leaves. I changed the lifespan to 10 seconds. And then there were some interesting parameters I tweaked here. So I added the noise strength to be 1, noise scale to be 5, noise animation speed to be 5. And for the I added some vortex force field here as well. So I changed the vortex strength to be 0.1, and that kind of gives it's like this whirly spinning kind of foliage thing. So that's world scene 3. For the fourth scene, I simply duplicated it from the fall leaf scene that we just created, and I duplicated it, and then I went into the particle emitter. In the particle section of it, I simply swapped out the particle image to cherry blossom petal that we have here, and I essentially changed the size to like 5 from 20 because cherry blossom petals are smaller than maple leaf. I think most of the things I kind of kept the same in terms of like burst and birth rate, burst count, but I think one important thing I kind of did was is here I kind of played around with the angular velocity. So angular velocity, I had a variation of like plus minus 10, so it kind of gives like the petals kind of like have different angular velocity as time passes. So that's the variation between like different instances of them. Alright, so what we are going to do now in Xcode is simply take the world scenes that we created. We are simply going to make them as a child of the worlds respectively. So what we are going to do is we are simply going to load our scene and add it as a child to our world, right? So let's do that. Let's see if this actually does anything. You can see our portal is now loaded, but you can, if you look closely, that our snowfall is actually falling below, not where we want it. So we might want to change its position and kind of raise its height to the top. So let's just do that. Let's just increase the Y height of our particle system. And to do that, what we are going to do is world 1 scene dot position, and we are going to change it to 0 in the x-axis, maybe like 3 meters in the y-axis, and then again 0 in the z-axis. So we are basically putting it 3 meters above where our ground position is. So when we do that, so you can see now that our snow is falling from the top. Now let's add the remaining particle systems and also increase the height of the box back so that it looks more like a door. Alright, so we added our remaining scenes. Alright, so when we run this again, we can see that our snow is falling, our leaves are falling, we have the rain, and then we have our cherry blossom petals falling. and that completes our effect. So one thing I forgot to mention to you is that when you're creating 4 particle systems with so many particles, it becomes very taxing for the GPU. So you'll see some performance hits. When I was testing this on device, I started noticing things like judder and jitter. When I was like moving my head, I was seeing that the skybox was getting like almost rendered twice and it was a little bit blurry. So it was not keeping up with my head movements. So this is something that is going to be a performance issue. To deal with this, you can reduce the number of overall particles in the system. So you can do that too. You can also apply some clever optimization techniques, like for example, when the user, you can track the user's head and you can see if the user is facing one side of the portal, you can basically disable the particle emitters on the other sides of the portal to which the user is not facing. You can do this with simple dot products or something, so keep that in mind. One more thing I wanted to tell you is that this works in a volume. The thing is, if your portal window is within the bounds of that volume, then the portal essentially renders the world properly, even though the world is outside the bounds of the volume, because it's essentially a camera that's kind of looking into a different scene. So this is something to keep in mind. You can totally create interesting portal effects in volumes too. So just keep that in mind. This is not only for the immersive view. You can totally do this in a volume. That brings us to the end of this adventure. I really hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification button. I'll see you in the next one.